Okay, Courtney, I'm going to go over your test with you here. Where your weaknesses are, first of all, intersection and union. This means what do they share? So this is triangle KLN, so that's this blue triangle here, intersecting with or and MLN. What do they have in common? And what they have in common is this segment NL, and that's it, NL. Okay? Don't forget, on a segment, you want to put the line over it when you're naming the segment, as we're doing here, because without the line, like you have here, it means the length, and that's not what we're doing. So it's just one segment that they share between them, and that's LN. Then this says list all the segments of triangle KLN and MLN. So that's all the segments that make up KLN and all the segments that make up MLN. So that would be KN, KL, LN, NM, and LM. So that would be all of those segments with segment lines over them. And there's 5 of them because one of them they share, obviously. So KL, LM, MN. And then this is the intersection again. What does it share? What do they share? What do they have in common? And that's the intersection of the segment KN and the segment LN. So the segment KN is this segment, the segment LN is this segment. What do they share? They share that point N, and that's it. Okay? Going down here. Using a protractor to draw an angle with the following measurements. All you have are segments. You don't have an angle. So to do this, you've drawn a line, set up your protractor so that the center is on the vertex, and you've lined it up on 0 degrees, and then read the bottom number going in this direction until you find 162 is way, way over on this side. You can't see it. There we go. If I put a piece of paper underneath, you'll be able to see it. 162 is about right here. So I wanted, oops, oh, I lost my paper. Let me do it again. Okay, 162 is about there. So if I connect those two, it's going to be this really wide angle because it's almost close to 180 degrees. And then for 58 degrees, I'm going to show you how to do that, setting it up on the other side of the protractor. So I'm going to pick this as my vertex, so that's going to go into the center, and I'm going to line that up on the left-hand side here on the 0 degree mark. And this time, going this direction, I'm going to read the top numbers. So there's 50, there's 55, 56, 57, 58 is right here. And I make a little mark there. And then I just connect the vertex with that mark. And that's 58 degrees. So that's how you do the protractor. We'll be doing a lot more of those as well. Okay, so let's go on to the next page. Here we go. Okay, so you're not recognizing angle relationships very well yet. These are vertical angles. If you have intersecting lines, the angles that are opposite each other or across from each other are called vertical angles. And what we know about them are that they're equal. Well, you did set them up as equal, okay, and solving for x, but you didn't get the right answer here, so let's solve that. 11x equals 85 plus x. Subtract x from both sides, which is what you did over here, to get 10x equals 85. And here's where you turned your numbers around. You have 85 here and you wrote 58, and that's where you got mixed up. So when you divide by 10, x is equal to 8.5, so this should have been 8.5. And then you would plug it back in for x here at 11, so 11 times 8.5, which if you put that in your calculator, 11 times 8.5 is 93.5. So this angle measure 5 is 93.5. So that means 7 is also 93.5 because they're equal. Okay, find the measure of angle 8. It tells us that angle 5 is 145 degrees. Again, we have to recognize that these are vertical angles, that they're across from each other when you have intersecting lines. So that would also be, the measure of 8 would be 145 degrees. This little M here means measure. Okay, that means the measure, the degrees. This one says name an angle. So it's not just looking for a measurement, it's looking for you to name the angle that's vertical to angle 4. Well, here's angle 4, and here's my intersecting lines, so the angle across from that is angle 1. So angle 1 is my vertical angle to angle 4. And then E says name an angle that forms a linear pair with angle 7. So here's angle 7. A linear pair, remember, has to form a line with the 7. So that would be angle 8 to form this line, or angle 5 to form this line. So supplementary or linear pairs are next to each other. They share a side and a vertex, and they form a line. They're 180 degrees. So this would have been either angle 5 or angle 8. You could have put either one on here. Okay, and the next part is slope. Slope of the line is a fraction. This is from algebra. This is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. We practice this quite a bit. So if you labeled your points, you take your y's first, so 7 minus 3, and then divide it by your x's, subtract the difference in your x's, so minus 2 minus 3, minus 2, and then minus 3, because this says we have to subtract. 7 minus 3 is 4, minus 2 and minus 3 is a minus 5, so my slope is negative 4/5 for this line that goes between these 2 points, okay? Now, I want the slope of any line parallel to this line. Well, parallel lines have the same exact slope, because look at your picture that you drew here. If I drew a line that was parallel to that, you can see its rise over the run. Rise over the run is going to be the same on both. So this would also be negative 4/5, have the same slope. Now, what's the slope of any line perpendicular to that line? Well, if I drew a perpendicular to your lines here, okay, to that red line, you can see that the black line has a positive slope and the red line has a negative slope. So they have to be opposite each other. So if this is negative, this slope, then a line perpendicular has to be positive. And it's the reciprocal, so you flip these. So the answer is 5/4. We flip these and change the sign. Okay, down here it says give another name for the ray OI. This is a ray because it's got an arrow, one arrow on the top of it. And a ray, remember back in 2.1 it says, okay, this is your beginning point. A ray has a beginning point, starts at O, and then the second point tells you the direction it goes in. So it goes in the direction of I, but it goes forever, okay? It goes through I. And another name for that exact ray could be either ON or OT, but it has to start with O. So OT or ON, and it has to have that little arrow on top. Because with a ray, the order matters. This first point must be the beginning point of the ray, which is O. And these two, the second point tells you the direction of the ray. Okay, now we have a problem of segment addition property. It says PI is 25, so length PI is 25. So I put in from P to I is 25. And I to T is 45, so from I to T is 45. Well, we can see if we add 25 and 45, that gives us the length between P and T, right? So that is 70. And then NT equals 10, so that little section there is 10. We want to find out the length from P to N, okay? Well, we know the length, the whole thing from P to T, and we know from N to T. So if we took PT, the whole thing, and subtracted this section here, that would give us what we wanted, PN. So we want to subtract 10, and that would give us 60, and that's the answer for the length of PN. Okay, paper here. Again, this is about recognizing relationships in angles. An angle 6 and angle 7 are vertical angles, and we know that they're equal. So if 6 is 48 degrees, then 7 has to be 48 degrees. And then these two have to be supplementary to these angles because they form lines. They're linear pairs. So angle 4 and angle 5 will be the same, but they are the supplements to these angles here. So that's 180 minus 48 because they form linear pairs, which is 132. So these are 132. So once you find one angle in these intersecting lines, you have all of them. Okay, you need to recognize that this is a right angle, and two angles that make up a right angle are called complements. They complement each other, and they add up to 90 degrees. And that's what we need to know about right angles are 90 degrees, so they have to add up to 90. So that says this angle x plus this angle x plus 16 has to equal 90 degrees. So there's your equation. You could set that up and then solve. Once you get x, then you can find the angle measures by plugging it in. One of them is just whatever x is, and the other one is going to be whatever x is plus 16. That'll be your second angle. Okay, down here, angle 1 and angle 2 are not vertical angles because they're not across from each other. They're next to each other, so they have to be linear pairs. Linear pairs, we know, form a line. Here's the line that those two angles form. So that means they add up to 180. They're supplementary to each other. So angle 1 is 10x plus 1, and angle 2 is 7x plus 9. You add them together to get 180 degrees. That's your equation, and then you can solve for x and plug it in. Okay, got that right. Just remember on these, when you're naming angles, that you need to have this little angle symbol. I didn't mark you wrong on this time, but on another test I would mark it wrong. Because if without that little angle symbol, it just says PTR, points PTR, not the angle itself. So you need to make sure you get the right symbols as well. Okay, you did fine on the logic test. You got 12 out of 14. So I'm going to give you some papers to study over the break on the geometry test, and then you'll have to tell me, explain to me that you understand.